Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of To the Saints.
Yes.
Yay!
Yay! Why is he laughing? He laughs so much. Oh, if you only knew what went on behind the scenes.
We are much laughing people.
Very much laughing people, yes. So, episode number 95.
Wow.
Inching ever closer to that 100th episode.
Yes.
Hey, and if you're new to us, just in general, but you're not new to Instagram, we are trying to institute 100 followers. I know it's not a lot, but 100 followers by our 100th episode.
Yes. Well, I mean, like, we just got on Instagram, a month ago?
Mm-hmm.
A month and a half ago? Like, we haven't been on Instagram very
Well,
long
we
at
were
all.
on Instagram back in 17, but we haven't been active on it.
Yeah.
For
When
like
we
a
started
year
about
and
the
a
month
half.
ago, we only
Yeah.
had like 30.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
And there's 7 of us, and I think 5 of us are
Yeah.
following it.
Yes.
So anyway, we'd love to reach
Yes.
100 followers by our 100th episode.
Yes.
Yes.
So, on our 100th episode, no, I don't want to put that out there.
Not yet.
I'm not going to put anything out right
Yeah.
now. Okay.
Teaser alert.
Teaser alert. Don't do it. Okay. All right. So, hey, my name is RC.
And this is Andrew.
I'm Bridget.
This is Carrie.
This is Tyrone.
This is Alice.
This is Thomas.
Oh, that's good. He's got Thomas now. Instead of going, this is Alice, now we got, this is Thomas.
Well, there was the one episode where we were trying to record like a little commercial. When
Yes.
we did our conference. And we had to keep recording it because we had to say it faster.
We did.
So we kept having to say our name a little bit faster.
Yep.
Oh, so, yeah, some might say we might need a little bit of...
I need somebody help, not just anybody help. You know I need someone help.
That just didn't...
Help!
This ends.
Why do we need help?
Because our family and friends think we have joined a cult.
What? Oh, no.
So let's say the Lord draws you out of the institutional church system and is leading you to meet with a group of saints in a kingdom community, and it looks completely different.
What?
And you share this glorious news with your loved ones, and they say, "Oh, great, I'm so thrilled for you." Maybe. But if you've had
If that happens,
yes,
please tell us about
Yes.
it.
we do want to hear that. Leave a comment. But many of us, and we've heard from a lot of people that have had an experience where like, that sounds like a cult.
Yeah.
Show of hands?
Everyone.
All right, really on the
Everybody's
Podcast
hands are
show.
raised. If you cannot see them, obviously you cannot.
We are showing
Our hands were raised.
They were raised.
We are considering doing video casts at
We
some
are.
point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Practicing.
We're teasing that.
We practiced today. Everybody put on their faces for this episode. So what's it mean, somebody, RC, when we say a cult? Well, thanks for asking, RC. I want to tell you. We looked, when we were discussing these things, we looked this stuff up, and we decided we may actually fit a cult. The definition.
If you take the literal
yes,
definition,
yes,
the most
literal.
general.
Yeah, that's what it
Yes.
was. The most general definition. Yeah.
Right. So here, the general definition is a system of religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object. Which, if you've been listening to any of our episodes, we are devoted towards a particular figure,
Person.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ.
Right.
Yes.
So we came up. This is going to be on our new T-shirts coming out soon. To the Saints, a cult of incestuous, cannibalistic, monotheistic vampires.
We might have just lost some people.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that true, Andrew?
That's a lot to put on a t-shirt.
Really quick.
Maybe
We'll
we should start with the
explain.
monotheistic first, and we might have a little bit.
Yeah, there we go.
A little bit better.
So basically, the early church was accused of being incestuous because they called each other brother and sister. Even married couples called each other brother and sister. And they were accused of being cannibalistic because they talked about eating the body of Christ and drinking his blood, hence the vampires. And then in that day, being monotheistic was very rare.
Against the norm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Which means you believe in one God.
right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mono.
You're welcome.
One.
Today's word of
Jesus.
the day. So the general definition, we fit within the general definition being directed towards a particular person, Jesus Christ. The narrow definition within Christianity, this is what I think more people think of when they think of the word cult. not cults. This is not the Indianapolis cult show.
Or
This is
the baby horses.
or the baby horses. The cults. Cult. How do you say it? Am I saying it right?
Cult.
Cult.
Hades.
Hey.
That's right. You
Bottle
said
shock. Narrow definition within Christianity. A religious group that denies one or more of the fundamentals of biblical truth.
Yeah, that's probably the one I'm more used to.
Yes.
During
Absolutely.
That's what people think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You don't have a pastor, oh, you're a cult. You don't tithe, oh, you're a cult. You don't do XYZ or have XYZ, oh, you must be a cult.
Yeah, I know for Carrie and I, and like Allison said, a lot of us have experienced what you might be going through, or what you might receive from some well-meaning friends and family. But like Carrie and I and our 3 children, we had left Indiana, moved away from an area that we knew well, family and friends.
Knew well, we grew up there.
Yeah.
we knew it
They
really
left.
well.
The
No, I'm
back
just
of
saying
my
it's
hand.
that.
Yeah.
that, you know, makes it a little bit more profound.
Yeah, we had good jobs, and we had what we thought was our little dream mini farm
Yes.
with chickens and garden.
Goats
Yeah,
to
we
come.
we still dream about that today. I wasn't a part of that, but I still dream about that.
And those things aren't bad. It's just the Lord really kind of grabbed hold of us, and we were so captivated by Him that He asked us to leave that and move to a different state. And I remember talking with my parents, who are very supportive,
Yeah.
and wanting to understand and hear some of the reasons, but their questions were coming from their background. So asking about, well, who is the leader of this group?
Which
that
they
you're
always thought
going
would
to?
be you.
Yeah, well, we didn't want to tell them
Yeah.
that first.
No,
I was the
no.
leader. But they were looking for, okay, so there must be a leader, or who makes the decisions, like who are the elders of that group, and how are they making decisions for your group? But they were coming from their tradition, and they had never at that time they'd never heard of organic church, so for them they knew the First Baptist Church, the different Christian churches, the Churches of Christ, but organic church, what is that? So I think some of their questions were well-meaning, but
Yeah.
at the same time they were also resistive of, so you're just going to leave all this and go do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely identify with what Andrew's saying. I've had people extremely close to me, my folks, saying that it was a cult and things like that, and it sucks. I had to. I lived in Florida most of my life, and I had to go to California for learning how to be a organic church planter. And they were so freaked out that they actually gave me a safe phrase to say on the phone that wouldn't be able to be discerned by the people in the room that I was with.
Oh, wow.
That as soon as I said this, then that would be their cue that
To come rescue
I
you.
realized that I had made a horrible mistake and that I should come back. And it was,
Wow.
that was kind of eye-opening to me to see how off they were.
Yeah.
I had my father told me that there was without a doubt that I would lose all my money in 6 months, and I would it'd be the biggest mistake of my life. And
Wow.
5 years later, I'm still doing okay, and I haven't given away all my money. But it was it was crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, and it was tough because I'm
Absolutely.
I'm a single person. I don't, they're the, some of my closest people. And this is the first time in my life I'd ever truly butted heads with them. And it was extremely, heartrending to have to look at my mom with tears in her eyes, knowing that I
Yes.
was following the Lord and causing this pain in my mom's heart,
Yep.
and this lowered amount of respect for my father. That sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely.
But I'm living for the next life, not this one.
Right.
So
Amen.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that Tyrone and I got was, well, who is your covering there?
Yeah.
Which kind of explains the background of said person.
Yeah.
Who is going to be the person that makes sure you guys don't go off in teachings and doctrine and into weird stuff? And then the general idea was brought up, well, if you just want to try to do church differently, as with most cities in the United States, there's a bunch here. There's plenty here. Why don't you just try some of the different churches around here, and then you can stay here?
Right.
And it was a very specific experience we were looking for that was not in that area. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think from one of my family members, they just straight up asked, "Is it a cult?" Kind of in a loving way, like concern. I just simply said, "No, it's not. You know who I am."
Yeah.
And so that was enough. They're like, "Okay, Tyrone," and then we went on to the next thing. But yeah, so and it's you expect it a little bit to come from someone, but then when it happens, you're just like, "Wow, this is." It's hard.
Yeah.
And then also you get to see where people's heads are at, what they're
Mm-hmm.
thinking at, their experience, what the Lord is at. And so it's not any judgment on them or anything, but it's very interesting. Just because, like, Lord, I mean, what's up with us? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do this to us? Or why'd you show us this vision?
Yes.
Give us your vision of your son.
Yes.
And he said, because that's always been my goal.
Yep.
Yeah, right. He would love to give that to everybody.
Yeah.
Mhm. But not everybody's listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, considering the topic we are discussing.
Yes, hopefully.
What I said there just was not the right transition to my turn to talk, so I made it really weird. Our parents and friends too were concerned for us, not concerned with us because we weren't that concerned, but concerned for us. Even when we were stepping out of the institutional church, the last one we were a part of, the pastor and his wife came over and visited with us, and so we were just kind of we weren't leaving for anything at that time. We just knew what we weren't. We just knew there was something more. There was something natural or organic with the Lord that we weren't seeing or experiencing, that the system that was in place was not allowing the freedom of the Spirit. And I just remember them saying, even organisms have organization. And it was just that again, what Tyrone said, the mindset of people. And so even from that, even just stepping out of that, we started having people question us and ask us these things. And then when we got this invitation to move halfway across the country from Oklahoma to Florida, that's when the cult stuff really started. I don't know that anybody ever really asked point blank, is this a cult? But everything they were saying and everything that was really, that's what they were asking.
There was a concern.
Yes, that was the question behind the questions they were asking. What flavor Kool-Aid did they serve and that kind of stuff. Which that was not a question we got. But so as they were saying that, not that it was a big concern of mine, but it put a seed thought in my head of what is this? What if? So we went to visit the group before we moved out there, and when we did, because it was being planted at the time by a couple of workers, one of whom was Frank Viola, the other one Milt Rodriguez, and some other workers, but those were the two that were still kind of hanging around and that were still there when we visited. And they had both written books, a lot of books, and they had kind of this online following, if you will. And so the thought was, you're just going to be a part of these guys' thing, that this was about them. This was so they could sell more books and make more money. This was about this stuff. And from what I read of their stuff and what I'd heard, because I had listened to messages of theirs before and even had gone to a conference where we got to meet Frank and Milt before, I knew that wasn't the case. I knew that they weren't about themselves at all. And when we visited, we saw the reality of that it was so far from being about these men or their books, that it was about the Lord and his purpose and this amazing Christ and his bride and this manifestation of
this family.
Yes, exactly. And so it took. So then that kind of relieved my only small little what if we saw that and it was, no, this is. I don't know what this is, but I know that it's not that. That it's that cult thing.
Right.
And the truth is, it took some time after we moved to Florida, and we've been walking this road for 9 years now, almost. It took a little time. I don't know that our parents were so concerned about that. Obviously, not as much as Thomas's were to give us that kind of out, but it took some time before they started to see this isn't really what I thought it was. That I'm so and so thinking that's not what I thought it was, kind of thing. Because now they see where we're at, and we've sold everything and live in an RV now, but it's still not a cult. Right. But because that's because of our devotion to a person, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Yep. I think things to remember when you're dealing with this is that when this happens, my encouragement is, first of all, you probably have really loving and supportive friends and family who actually care about you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a blessing, right?
Yep.
I understand this is a super frustrating situation to be in. But A, that's a blessing. B, are they stopping you from continuing on in the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
No, right? And the people who are doing it from not a loving and concerned place aren't stopping you either. So, it's something we have to deal with. When it is from a loving and concerned place, we bear with our brothers and sisters, right? We forbear. And when it's from an unconcerned place, we can just ignore it. We can just set it aside and still continue on in following the Lord. So my encouragement, because it is hard and you can get bogged down in it because of the discomfort, right? Because of the relational discomfort that it causes. Yep. But it ultimately can't stop you from following the Lord. So don't get too bogged down in it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because this is the Lord who's saying, "Come follow me." And I was told, I was told this. Jesus wouldn't ask you to do this, hurt my family. He wouldn't ask you to leave this for something else. And it just
not the first time he's done that.
I was like, no, it just shows the understanding.
The truth is, those questions, those concerns didn't get presented to us until the Lord was asking something of us that was actually going to cost our family members something too.
Yes.
When it was just costing us something, they were actually okay with it. They didn't really care. They weren't really that interested in what we were doing. But it was when it started to cost them something. It cost them their grandchildren being close. It cost them their children being close. It cost them feeling like they had more of an ability to help out or take care of us, because it's harder when you're halfway across the country, right? When it was costing them something was all of a sudden when it was, this is dangerous. This is not good. This could be a really bad thing. And that's human nature. Right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, part of that too is this defensive standpoint of what's wrong with what I do,
Right.
taking it that way. They feel like, so you're going to leave this institution or
absolutely,
stuff, and you're going to go that. So you're saying that
What
I'm doing isn't right, or it's not fine.
Somehow you've passed judgment on them.
Even though that was never, none of us ever did that.
No.
Yeah, that wasn't. We were just captured by a glorious sight of the Lord, as much as we had seen of Him before experiencing body life or community. So,
right, and they may not even be insightful to what you were saying, Andrew. In that, sometimes I think the word cult is like a paper tiger, and I've learned when we were preparing for this, not everyone knows what a paper tiger is. A paper tiger is basically like something you threaten someone with, but there's no real substance to it. Like there would be no substance to a paper tiger, but if there's a real tiger, dangerous.
yes.
So when they use the word cult or whatever word they might use, it's a paper tiger. It's just them throwing a hot word out there to try to get you to fall more in line with what they want. I have some friends who were part of house churches, I'd say about 10 years at this point, and when they first got into it, their mother said, "Oh, that just sounds like a cult," right? And then last I spoke with them, about 10 years later, she started to realize, well, maybe it wasn't a cult, right? But think about that. Like if she had really wanted to investigate it in those 10 years, she easily could have.
Yeah.
Right.
They weren't like, states away. They were just, they were close. So, I think that's, it's mentally it's mentally taxing, and maybe I should put this in, but really investigating whether or not this group that your loved one is involved with is actually a cult and is actually dangerous. That's a time-consuming, mentally challenging, and sometimes assumption challenging thing that people don't want to do.
Right.
And is scary for people, and so that's kind of what's driving that some of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think, at least with all of us here and many who are listening, our families or whoever it is, your friends, or for the most part, I would say, have a genuine concern.
Yes.
They love you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And whether it's out of ignorance or misunderstanding in terms of what's being explained to them, what they're hearing from us, or what they're going through, that could be the case, or it could be the case of the expression of control that you receive while you're in the institutional church. So that just pours over. Stay in your lane.
Right.
Don't do anything that bucks against the system or that may agitate. Don't be an agitator. Of course, that's not what we're about, trying to be intentional agitators. But it's your family loves you. That's another encouragement too.
Absolutely.
They just have a concern, and that concern may be from a misinformed place.
Right.
Right. And when you're first coming into this, you may not fully understand what it is to be able to have a lot of conversations about it. Because it feels like the Lord is opening your eyes, opening your heart, reframing everything, every paradigm. And so when you try to have some conversations, it's kind of like a toddler talking to an adult in a sense. Some of the words aren't there because what you feel like the Lord is telling you is very clear, but to express it,
You don't have it yet.
Yeah.
That's
Not
totally my
only do you
experience.
not have the words yet, but it's also like someone who has literally never seen the ocean before. Like, not even pictures of it, has never seen the ocean before, and you're trying to describe it to them. And they have no grid to put this in, you know?
Reminds
and so
me of
it
the
goes
movie.
both ways, I feel like. Like, we
that's
don't
true.
feel like we have the words, and then they have no grid for what we're seeing because they've never seen it before, you know?
Reminds me of the movie Tron Legacy, where she asked him to describe the sunrise, and he goes, "How do you describe the sunrise?"
Yes.
You
You
know,
have to
and-
experience.
How do you describe it to someone who has nothing even similar?
Right.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out is this insurgence is not going to be on every corner.
No.
You know, I feel like the Lord's heart and desire is it to be on every corner, but the reality is this probably won't be on the channel 10 of the TV station where you can just watch. You know, this is actually a community of believers who are gathering together, and so it won't. I guess I would say it's going to stay small. So even coming into this, you know, don't look for when we talk about there's a growth, a lot more people are interested. It's still relative.
Yeah.
It's still kind of small.
Yeah. If you consider there's how many billions of people in the world, and there's not that many who do this.
Yeah, it's not that popular to break with long-standing traditions
It's not.
and drop old filters. Like, we all were not raised, but we all were part of the institutional system for a long time to varying degrees or years. And that becomes a big, huge influence, and it debilitates you. You're incapacitated in many ways in terms of your spiritual walk with the Lord. Your spiritual man functioning is limited. There are things you've never actually probably experienced or done as a Christian in that system, which we talk about a little bit in episode 86, taking the red pill. Of course, this episode we're in right now is for people who have taken that red pill and are reaping the ramifications, which I think in part are from the Lord. There are some things that He's teaching you too.
Yep.
But it's one of those things where it's very challenging to drop those old filters for people who, for whatever reason, aren't seeing the same thing that you're seeing. And there's nothing we in ourselves can do to change that image or to change that mind. I remember in The Matrix, he says, you can't just go and unplug everybody right now if they're not ready.
Right.
That would destroy their lives. And
Right.
you'd be like, oh, too much shock to the system. And so keeping that in mind, that there will be those who will be fine where they're at. In whatever church they may be at, they're still our brothers and sisters. They still love the Lord. We can't take that from them. However, this is something that you'll experience, and I don't say that we're up against, because we're not. It's not our challenge, and we're not going
Right.
against it. It's just something that will come against you, or you'll experience.
Yep.
I think that's a good point, getting back to that word cult and that definition within Christianity, that it's about denying fundamental biblical truth. That when we walk away from traditions or have a different filter or worldview, some people are going to see that as a cult, but really we're not walking away from biblical truth.
Right.
We're still hopefully all under that same larger umbrella, it just looks different.
Exactly. I remember Gunnar was talking about this, a friend of ours, and he was saying when he left the institution, he was accused of being rebellious, and he didn't say this, but he was thinking he wants to say to the institutional church system, like, well, hey, institutional church system, how rebellious are you? You know,
Right.
for so
Right.
yeah, so it yeah.
Well, and it's typically the things that they're concerned about us leaving aren't actually biblical truths, aren't actually Christ. They're these traditions,
Right.
right?
Most of them are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, an encouragement, just talking, hearing people talk about, how to manage this difficulty with, your loved ones or friends and things like that. Feel free to not convince them of anything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just let 'em-
Because you're not going to
Because
do
in the
it.
institution, you have some mindsets are you need to win everybody over to this side, or
This belief
this
system.
convert
Your
Yeah.
opinion, yeah.
ing type mindset, and you are free to just not do that. You don't have to convince them. You don't have to show them that it's real. You don't, only as the Lord leads would I ever try to convince anyone of what I'm doing in a way of it just isn't going to go anywhere. It's not fruitful.
Right.
But you can pay attention to the Lord's life in that person, and if they start to ask questions and do those things, then entertain those things. But you don't have to convince everybody, or it's not your job.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're convinced that they're right and you're wrong.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
already.
Let them be.
I remember that was hard for Bridget and me when we stepped out of the institution. All of our friends from the church, we knew they were talking. They were
It's a small town. Things get around.
yeah, that things were going on, and we wanted to give our side of the story. We wanted to tell to set the record straight.
Yes.
But the Lord asked us to be quiet,
Yes.
and that was hard.
Yeah.
To know that people were talking certain things about us that we
weren't
knew
true.
weren't true, but yet the
Wow.
Lord wasn't asking us or calling us to go and convince them
Yeah.
that we're right.
He
No.
said, if I want you to tell your story, I will bring the conversation to you.
Yeah.
And he did that once.
Wow.
One person actually came to us.
Yeah. So in our zealousness of whenever the Lord starts showing us something, we just want to spill it out everywhere,
Yes.
which isn't bad.
Yeah.
But
It's understandable.
it's understandable, but we realize not everybody's ready to be convinced of everything, and you don't have to. Just let it go. Don't worry about it.
On the other side, at least for me, not all of my family was in this. There were some that were super encouraging. That it's like digging for gold. You got to go through all that dirt to get to that nugget, and every so often there'd be that gold nugget. After being around, not calling my family dirt, the experience of it, just
Yes.
kind of like it's tough sometimes. But then you get that encouraging word like follow the Lord,
Yeah.
whether they know what all that entails or
Yeah.
not. It's just like, wow, thank you, Lord, for
Yes.
letting us know that.
Yeah, it came from
What-
surprising
yeah.
places
Yeah.
sometimes. People I didn't expect would suddenly be like, I experienced something like that when I was younger. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah,
It's like, Whoa.
Okay.
Okay.
Who are you?
Yeah.
I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Saints, it may feel lonely sometimes.
Yes.
A lot of the time.
Yes.
Because a lot of times coming out of the institution, you're coming out of Babylon, the system of Babylon.
Yes.
And that may be a podcast sometime if we haven't already discussed
Mhm.
it.
Unto
Egypt and Babylon.
the Lord.
Yeah, you're coming out into the Lord's
Yeah.
kingdom.
Yeah.
And often, every time, there's going to be a wilderness season.
Yes.
And it can get lonely in the
Yes.
wilderness.
Yes.
Just like last week you talked about the Exodus, and Jesus being the new Exodus. In the Old Testament Exodus, they had to go through the wilderness. But then, how long they stayed in the wilderness was their own choice, too.
Yeah,
The Lord led them pretty quickly to the Promised Land, and they didn't want to go in yet, so it was 40 years. And anyway,
Right.
so it will feel lonely sometimes.
Yeah. It will. And, these things we're talking about are a lot based on our experiences and those that we've talked to, but they're not like steps. So,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm
Step
step
one.
one. Okay, now I'm in the wilderness. Okay, it's like
Right.
Yes, right.
we're trying to let you know
General
this process.
experience of
Yes.
most people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also times where you just might feel like maybe you have lost your marbles. You kind of just like
You left them back in the
everyone
Egypt
I
and
talk
Babylon.
to, when I talk to them, they look at me like I'm from a different planet.
Yes.
And the words that I use, they don't have a grid to put them in, and it's frustrating sometimes. I know Carrie has shared in the past about the Lord is downloading a revelation to her, but she didn't feel like she had an outlet for it, and she didn't understand if the Lord is giving her this, why wouldn't he allow the environment we were in at the time to be an expression of that? I do feel like, the enemy is not for this.
Right.
So he is going to kind of use these attacks for you to doubt yourself.
Yeah.
And for you to kind of maybe retreat or just discount some of those feelings. Like, okay, this seems out there, so I'll just go back to what I know.
Yep.
So during this time, you are questioning a lot of things. I mean, I remember, going through Bible college, and now I'm looking at the Bible completely differently, like different filters, different lenses, and it's like I've read this, but it didn't say that last time I read it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Changing my Bible.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
So it is this just world upside down happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brother, sister, as RC said earlier, you may feel lonely at times. There will be loneliness, but rest assured you're not alone.
Amen.
There is groups of people around the world who are thinking the same way, who have been captured by the Lord in similar ways, who they're thinking the same thing too. Boy, I must be going crazy.
Yeah.
Where is everybody? There are people around. That's what we're here for in part to
A
help
lot of it.
Yes.
to help our brothers and sisters connect with one another wherever you may be. You're not alone.
Yep.
Number one, you have the Lord who is in you.
Yes.
So this is a season. I like to say you experience loneliness to experience onliness.
Yes.
And that is just Christ only.
Yes.
That's just
Did you
him.
come up with that yourself?
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's what I learned. It's just like you going through that wilderness, it's us and the Lord.
Yeah. That's
See,
what he
whether
wants.
it's a group of us, whether it's two of us, whether it was RC and Bridget, me and Allison, Thomas, or Carrie and Andrew, it was you and the Lord for a season until you come into this kingdom community and he strips you away of things or begins that process of taking away all the other stuff, the Jesus and this,
Yeah.
the Jesus and that, to where it's just Jesus, just me.
Or almost to the point where you're just willing to accept that it can just be
Yeah,
Jesus.
just yeah.
And then he moves you on. Okay, now here's me.
Yeah.
Like
And now see how full,
Full
I
full
am.
I am.
Jesus
You know.
is.
Yeah.
Then you start seeing Jesus as the fulfillment of all that and stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then you come into the fullness of Jesus,
Right.
hopefully, eventually, as the Lord brings it
Yes.
through his body.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew gets gosh, how many people sign up about every month of saying I'm looking for this, I'm wanting this?
Like 20 to 30.
About 20 to 30 all over. And the thing is just to highlight the fact that a lot of these people are scattered and alone.
Yep.
There aren't pockets of people that are like, because we want to connect them, and the nearest person may be a state away, or even 2 or 3 hours away. And so right now, that's where the Lord kind of just has his body in a way of maybe he is trying to work in that it's just me and you.
Yeah.
So allow it to be that time. But if he moves you on, know that we're here too to help you start connecting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he will move you on.
Yes.
Yeah.
The encouragement is
If
to
you're
keep
going to
pressing
continue
forward.
going on with the
Yes.
Lord, he will move
He
you
will
on.
move you on
Yes.
to whatever that is, and just know that hear it to the saints. We're here to connect you or get you. Whenever the Lord's moving you to the next step for you, we're here to help you find that next step.
Yeah.
When you're lonely, there's a podcast in the night.
Yeah, I mean, we really want to encourage you to keep exploring. I mean, if you listen to
Yeah.
our episodes, you talk about following the life.
Mm-hmm.
Keep following the life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep exploring. Christ is the fulfillment. He will answer that.
Take Dory's encouragement and advice. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Swimming. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue to listen to the podcast here. I think we said it. I'm going to say it again.
We try to be accessible. We have an email address, to the saints radio @gmail.com.
Yes.
We have people reach out to us all the time. We've
Yeah.
been
We're here.
we Skype call with people
Yep.
all over
Yeah.
the world,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
which is cool. But
It is.
so yeah, feel free, reach out.
Yeah.
Thomas will answer.
Yeah, no, I will.
Yes, he would.
Carrie, when you said that, it's like I kind of forget because I've been in this or surrounded by similar people for 7 or 8 years now. I kind of forget that so many people are more isolated.
They are.
And
Yeah.
just kind of give me a energy charge to help them.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
Yeah. Let them know they're not alone.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if you said it, but take this time to learn of the Lord, spending time with the Lord. Read,
Yeah.
journal, talk with him throughout the day. There's a lot of resources we have on our website in regards to how to know the Lord. And if possible, through our age of technology and social media, Facebook or Instagram, reach out and try to find people
Yeah.
who are of the like mind in regards to Christ-centered reality,
Yes.
God's eternal purpose, and pursue the Lord with them.
Yeah. Even if it's just one other person.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, we want to encourage you and welcome you to the adventure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we're excited that you're part of this.
And don't doubt God's ability. I read a book by a missionary, and the book was anonymous because he was from countries that were either Muslim or
Closed.
where it was against the law to be a Christian, and he would give extraordinarily dramatic stories of being led to a specific house and saying, "Hey, this is who I am. Are there Christians?" Just like extremely dramatic. So even if you're in a forbidden country or whatever I forget what the term is, but
Yeah.
believe God for something big for
Absolutely.
Yes.
community.
Yes.
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 Amen.
Yep. So if you're interested in a monotheistic, incestuous, cannibalistic vampire cult,
Yes.
Welcome
to
aboard.
welcome to our kingdom community.
Welcome.
So for all of you out there who are screaming,
I need somebody help, not just anybody help.
know
I
that
need someone.
we're there.
We're here. Yeah.
There is hope.
And we're not the only voice out
Yeah.
there.
No.
Yes.
Amen.
No,
By any means.
Thankfully.
We don't claim to be.
thankfully. So anyway, saints, we love you and we're glad you found us.
Yes.
And we're glad that the Lord put us in your path.
Yes.
And you in our path. That's to the saints radio @gmail.com.
Yes.
Or go to the website tothesaints.com. You can fill out a form there,
Contact
or
us.
contact us, comment on the blog posts. That'd be cool if you wanted to comment on this post, particularly encourage others with maybe your story
Yeah.
as they're
That'd be
listening
great.
and reading.
Yeah.
All right. Another one down.
Yes.
Woo.
More to go.
One more down closer to the 100.
This is RC.
This is Gary.
This is Bridget.
No, that wasn't Carrie. This is Carrie.
This is Tyrone.
This is Allison.
This is Thomas.